Love x Revenge. Stories where love collides with fate, and revenge walks hand in hand with mercy. Hold my child, the beggar woman whispered, her voice trembling as she stood in the middle of the crowded square. People were already turning away, pretending not to see her thin coat, her hollow cheeks, the baby wrapped in a worn gray blanket. Beggars were common here. Pain was common. Everyone had learned how not to look. She stepped closer to the fountain, where a small crowd had gathered around a street musician. He had paused, unsure whether to move or wait. The woman lifted her chin, closed her eyes, and began to sing. It was the kind of voice that didn't ask for permission. It cut through noise, through impatience, through the invisible walls people build around themselves. The first note trembled like a fragile thread, then grew steady, deep, aching. Conversations stopped. Phones lowered. A man laughed awkwardly, then fell silent. Her song wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It carried sorrow so raw it felt almost indecent to hear. She sang of cold nights and empty hands, of promises broken, of a child who deserved more than the world was willing to give. By the second verse, a woman near the fountain was openly crying. By the third, no one was pretending anymore. Tears ran down faces of strangers who had never known her name. The beggar woman swayed slightly, holding the baby close. When the song ended, silence fell so heavy it felt like something sacred had just passed through them. Then she did the unthinkable. She stepped forward and held the child out toward the nearest person, a well-dressed man in an expensive coat. "Please," she said softly. "Just for a moment, hold my child." The man froze. His eyes darted around, searching for escape, for permission to refuse. But the baby stirred, tiny fingers curling, and something inside him cracked. He reached out, awkwardly, and took the child into his arms. The woman smiled faintly. "Thank you," she whispered. Before anyone could stop her, she turned and walked away into the crowd. Gasps rippled through the square. "Hey!" someone shouted. She left the baby. A woman rushed forward, another pulled out her phone. The man holding the child looked panicked, as if he'd been handed a bomb instead of a sleeping infant. Minutes passed. The woman didn't return. Police were called. The baby was wrapped more securely, passed gently to a paramedic. Whispers spread fast. Abandoned child. Crazy beggar. Tragic, but not surprising. Until something else happened. A black luxury car rolled slowly to the edge of the square, drawing curious glances. The door opened, and a tall man stepped out, his face pale, his eyes locked on the baby. He pushed through the crowd with urgency that felt almost desperate. "That's my grandson," he said hoarsely. The square erupted in confusion. The paramedic hesitated. "Sir, that woman," the man interrupted, voice shaking. "Where is she?" No one had an answer. The man introduced himself quickly, almost angrily, as if daring someone to challenge him. He was a powerful businessman, known in the city for his wealth and ruthless reputation. Years ago, his only son had fallen in love with a poor singer. The family had disapproved. Words had been said that could never be taken back. The son left. Contact was cut. Later came the news of an accident, then silence. "I thought she died," the man whispered, staring at the baby's face. "I thought they both did." He sank onto the edge of the fountain, covering his mouth with his hand. For the first time, people saw not a titan of industry, but a broken old man. The police searched for hours. No sign of the woman. That night, the businessman took the child home. Days passed. The story spread everywhere. The mysterious singer, the abandoned baby, the tycoon's lost family. The city buzzed with speculation, outrage, pity. On the third night, the man couldn't sleep. He stood by the nursery, watching the baby breathe, when he heard a familiar melody drifting through the open window. His heart nearly stopped. Outside, across the street, stood the beggar woman. Clean now, calm, her eyes met his without fear. "You came," he said, stepping out into the cold. "I had to be sure," she replied quietly. "Sure that you would recognize him. Sure that you would feel something." Tears filled his eyes. "Why didn't you tell me who you were?" She laughed softly, bitterly. "Would you have listened?" She told him everything. How she had survived. How she had sung in small places, slept in shelters, raised her son alone. How pride had kept her away until hunger and fear finally pushed her back to the city she swore she'd never return to. "I didn't abandon him," she said firmly. "I tested you." His face twisted with shame. "I failed you," he whispered. She shook her head. "No, you held him." Silence stretched between them, heavy with years of regret. "What happens now?" he asked. She looked past him, at the house, at the light glowing in the nursery. "Now," she said, "you choose. Love, or revenge." He understood. Revenge would be easy. Lawyers, apologies in private, public statements crafted by assistants. Love would be harder. It would require humility. He knelt in front of her. The next morning, the city woke up to another shock. The businessman announced his resignation. He publicly acknowledged his daughter-in-law and grandson. He donated millions to shelters for women and children, and one name appeared on every document as director of a new foundation. The beggar woman who sang. Weeks later, she stood on a real stage for the first time, her son asleep backstage, her father-in-law in the front row, crying without shame. And when she sang, it wasn't pain people heard anymore. It was forgiveness.